All right, let's tackle one of history's biggest questions, one that you'll definitely see on an exam. We're talking about the League of Nations. It was this huge, ambitious idea born right out of the horror of World War I, and it was supposed to end all wars forever. But did it actually work? We're going to dig into its goals, its surprising wins, and, yeah, its spectacular failures to get a clear answer. So, what's the verdict? Was it just a complete wash, a total failure? Or was it more of a noble experiment that was, maybe just ahead of its time? Getting a really clear, balanced view on this is absolutely key, especially if you're studying for a test. And that's exactly what this explainer is designed to do, give you a rock-solid argument you can use. Okay, here's how we're going to break it all down. First up, we'll look at the big idea behind the League. Then we'll get into its early wins. And yeah, there were some. After that, we'll see where things started to go wrong, we'll analyze exactly why it failed, and then we'll wrap it all up with a final verdict and think about its legacy. So, first things first, the big idea. You have to remember, this thing was formed in 1920, right after the whole world had been torn apart by World War I. It was really humanity's first proper go at creating a global club for peace. It was a radical, hopeful idea pushed hard by people like the US President Woodrow Wilson. And at the absolute heart of the League was this revolutionary idea, collective security. Basically, it's an all-for-one, one-for-all pact. If you attack one of our members, you're attacking all of us, and we're all going to come down on you. It was meant to be the ultimate, don't even think about it, to any country with aggressive ideas. The League's to-do list was massive, really resting on these 4 big pillars you see here. Number 1, and the most important, was to stop another war from ever happening. But it also wanted to get countries to disarm, make life and work better for people everywhere, and look after former colonies. Keep these 4 aims in your head because we're going to use them as a scorecard later on. Now, here's a common mistake people make, thinking the League was a total disaster from day one. It just wasn't true. As we're about to see, in the 1920s, it actually chalked up some very real, very impressive wins. Okay, take the Åland Islands. This was a classic fight between Finland and Sweden over who owned them. Both sides were gearing up for a fight, but instead they went to the League. The League looked into it, made a decision, and you know what? Both sides accepted it. A war was completely avoided. That's a huge tick in the success column. And it happened again in a place called Upper Silesia. Germany and Poland both wanted this super valuable industrial area. The League stepped in, held a vote, and suggested splitting the region. And again, it worked. Both countries respected the decision. This proved the League's method could actually solve problems. The incident between Greece and Bulgaria is probably the best example of the League's power. Greek soldiers invaded Bulgaria, and the League didn't mess around. It immediately condemned the invasion, ordered Greece to pull its troops out, and told them to pay compensation. And Greece did it. The system worked exactly like it was supposed to. And this is a really crucial point. The League's impact was way bigger than just stopping fights. Its other agencies were doing amazing work. The health organization was tackling diseases across the globe. The refugee organization helped almost 500,000 prisoners of war get back home. And the International Labor Organization, the ILO, is still around today, setting standards for workers' rights. This is the success story that often gets totally forgotten. But for all that early promise, the 1930s were an absolute train wreck. Because now, the League wasn't dealing with small countries who were willing to talk. It was facing huge, aggressive powers that were hungry for empire. And the whole system just started to fall apart. Just look at this timeline. It shows how fast everything crumbled. It was one crisis after another, just bam, bam, bam. And every single time, the League was shown to be powerless. It was like a domino effect of failure that led straight to the start of World War II. The first massive test, and the first catastrophic failure, was Manchuria. Japan, a really powerful member of the League's own top council, invaded a massive chunk of China. So China went to the League for help, expecting that whole collective security promise to kick in. So what did the League do? Well, not much. It was slow, it was weak. It sent some people to write a report, which took over a year, and in the end, all it did was condemn Japan's actions. No sanctions, no army. Japan just laughed it off, kept Manchuria, and quit the League. The message to guys like Mussolini and Hitler was crystal clear. This League is a paper tiger. You can do what you want. If Manchuria was a body blow, The Abyssinian crisis was the knockout punch. This time, it was Mussolini's Italy invading the independent African nation of Abyssinia, another member of the League. This was a textbook case of aggression. This was the exact reason the League was created. The League did try sanctions this time, but they were a joke. They were totally toothless. They banned selling weapons to Italy, but, and this is the killer part, they didn't ban the sale of oil. Why not? Because Britain and France, the League's own leaders, were secretly making a deal to just give parts of Abyssinia to Mussolini to keep him happy. This hypocrisy just destroyed any credibility the League had left. It was over. Okay, so we've seen what happened. Now, to get those top marks in an exam, you have to explain why it happened. Why was the League so useless when it really counted? Let's do a little autopsy on this experiment and look at the fatal flaws that were baked in from the very beginning. You can boil it down to these 4 big reasons. 1. The big boys weren't in the club. 2. It had no army to back up its words. 3. Making any decision was painfully slow because everyone had to agree. And 4, when push came to shove, the powerful members just looked out for themselves. And really, the biggest weakness of all was the USA. The world's richest, most powerful country never even joined. Without America's money and its military might, any threat the League made was basically empty. It's like trying to run a global police force, but your strongest cop decided to stay home. All right, let's bring it all home. Time to answer that massive exam question. Was the League of Nations a success or a failure? To do this right, we've got to weigh all the evidence and come up with a smart, balanced conclusion. This scorecard here is your key to a great answer. On the success side, you've got it settling smaller disputes and doing incredible humanitarian work. But on the failure side, and this side is a lot heavier, it couldn't stop the big guys, it couldn't get anyone to disarm, and most importantly, it completely failed to stop another world war. So, if you were forced to put a number on it for an essay, you could argue it achieved maybe 30 to 40% of what it set out to do. It was a success in its secondary goals, but an absolute catastrophic failure in its main one. So, a partial success, but ultimately a major failure. But, and this is the twist, its story doesn't just end in failure. The League's collapse was actually a really important blueprint for what came next, the United Nations. The UN learned from all the League's mistakes. For example, it gave its Security Council a real army and real power. And lots of the League's successful bits, like its health agency, were just absorbed into the new UN system. And that leaves us with one last big thought to chew on. Could it be that the League's greatest success was actually its own failure? By trying and failing so spectacularly, it taught the world some painful but priceless lessons about what it really takes to make global peace work. And maybe, just maybe, without that noble failure, the United Nations we have today would never have had a chance.